modeling the hand. I'm actually going to demo two different styles of hands. I'm going to do this kind of claw-like hand, and I'm also just going to model a regular 3-finger cartoony type hand. Okay, so again, starting with the cube. I'm just going to pull it out here so we can work with it in front of the character. Alright, and adding in subdivisions. And I'm going to put quite a few in here. I'm going to put 6, so I'm doubling the number of fingers that I'm going to be putting in here. So I've got a 3-finger hand, and I'm going to put 6 subdivisions to create that. And I'm going to start scaling that down. So this is the palm of the hand that we're looking at, and the fingers are going to come off the X side over here, positive X side. The thumb will come off of this side over here. And let's go ahead and do a little shaping before we extrude the fingers. So just looking down at the palm of the hand here, actually this is the top of the hand, I'm going to grab the vertices. I want to make sure my symmetry is off for this. So let's reselect those, and I'm going to start pulling out the hand here. So this is the curvature. If you look down at your hand or hold it up in the air, before the fingers begin, there's actually curvature there. And I missed one here. Alright, I'm just going to grab all of these again and pull them out a little bit more. Okay, so that rounds everything out there. And I'm going to grab the edge going through the center. I'm also going to round this out. Okay, so I just rounded this out in the Z direction. Okay, and I'm going to extrude the first finger. And in the case of this finger, I'm actually just going to pull it straight out here and give it some subdivisions. I'm just going to put one in there right now for the center where the knuckle's going to be. And I'm going to come over here now and select these faces, extrude. So as I pull it out like this, even though this is getting the angle that I want, it is also scaling things up on one side more than the other, which I don't want. So I'm going to center it. I'm going to pull it straight out and then angle it off to the side. Alright. Coming over to what's going to be the pinky finger. Center that, pull it straight out, and angle that over. Okay, so got some shaping to do. The first thing I want to do is get the separation between the fingers here, which creates the webbing that we have between our fingers. We don't want to have the fingers sharing a common edge. This would create pulling and some odd deformation when the character was making hand gestures. So I'm going to drop in an edge loop at the base here and scale them down. Alright, and I'm going to take all of these and select them and pull them up. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here now that I've got that separation, and I'm going to actually come back and add the edge loops here. I forgot to do that when I extruded, so dropping these in here. Alright, cue to end that, and grabbing the edges and pulling these out to round them. Okay, so this is rounding out the fingers. I also want to grab this point here and center it. And it feels like these points came out just a little too far. I'm going to push them in so they're looking a little more symmetrical. Alright, and going over here to the pinky finger, go to edge, pull these out, and I've got a little overlap happening back here. I'm going to go ahead and just push that back in. Check this one over here too, so I don't want that happening. I want to keep that separation. Alright, and just down here at the end I'm going to widen that, center this, pull these points in a little tighter. Alright, so that's looking good, and this I'm going to scale up in Z, make it a little wider. Okay, so that gets the curvature happening along the sides of the fingers. I also want to create that on the top of the fingers. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these vertices running down the center of the finger and move those up. You can see that's rounding it out. I'm going to do the same thing down here. And I've got a funny extrude that happened right here, so and let me fix this little extrude problem I have going on right here. So it looks like I either double extruded, or let's just go ahead and delete these. And I'm not going to edit this out of the video because it's pretty common to have problems like this, especially if you're working fast. So I just deleted the extrude that I pulled out, and that leaves me with a hole here. If I right mouse click and go to edge, double click on that edge, hold down the shift key, right mouse click, just say fill hole, and that should fix that problem. And I'm just going to hit 3 on the keyboard and see if anything strange is happening. It looks good. Okay, so let's go back to shaping. I'm going to go to vertex, grab these points on the bottom of the hand or fingers, and push those down a little to round those out. Alright, let's go ahead and get the thumb in now. So I am actually going to add another edge loop in here. Push this one back and drop one in here in the center between these two. This will be the 4 faces that I use for the extrude. So I'm just going to select this and move it back a little, right about there, and grab the faces. And before I extrude this out, I actually want to get it at a little bit of an angle here. So I'm pulling it out, angling it, bringing it forward, and extruding it. Okay, and that's pulling it straight out. I actually want to center that on world space and pull it out like that. Okay. Angle it forward, and go ahead and scale this down a little. Alright, let's add a subdivision in there. Scale that down as well and angle it like that. Alright, and then shape the thumb. Going to vertex here, grabbing these points and rounding them out. And this is the webbing between our thumb and finger, so I'm going to round that out a little bit more. Same thing here. And it feels like the thumb's a little on the short side. Just pull it out a little bit more and add some curvature right here. Same thing on the bottom. Pulling that down and rounding out the top. Right. It's looking pretty good. I feel like this could get pulled back a little. And it's kind of a chubby thumb here, so just making that a little thinner. And now I want to round out the ends of the thumb as well as the finger, so I'm just pulling those out here. Rounding that out. And I feel like I've got a point that's a little off over here. Okay, so we can also round them out this way. Like that. There's a little twist going on right here. Same thing right here. So I'm just straightening these out. All right. And rounding this one out. And this right here. Okay. So for the bends and the knuckles, we're going to go ahead and add some supporting edge loops. And I'm not going to place them very close together because I want this to be pretty soft. Alright, same thing here on the thumb. So one here and one here. And now I want to come back and get some thickness to the palm. It's a little flat across the top. I hit Q to get out of that. Go back to object mode. I'm going to switch over to the sculpting tool, and the fourth one down here is a grab tool that works quite nice. And to scale your brush size, that's holding down the B key and just dragging the left mouse button left to right. So I'm going to grab an area and start pulling up on it. And it's very low poly, so you see it kind of popping there. That's what's going on. Alright, so that creates a little bit of volume. I know my character has got very wide wrists, so I'm probably going to have to come back here and expand that. Okay, so I could pull this area down here, here as well. I'm going to round this area out a little more. Push this area in. Right. And to get out of the sculpting tool, I'm going to hit Q on the keyboard. Alright, so we have a basic hand, and if I hit 3 on the keyboard, we can see what that looks like. Okay, so pretty generic. So what I'm going to do now is set this over here, and I'm going to model out a hand that looks more like a claw. Going back over here and putting those subdivisions in. So 4, 2, and 6. This is also going to have 3 fingers on it. Scale it up. Bring it down here. Again, shape it. Alright, and from here I'm going to grab the faces, and what I'm going to do a little differently on this one, when I extrude it, come under here and open up the option box for extrude. I'm going to generate a curve, and I'm going to put in 3 subdivisions. Alright, and what this is going to allow me to do is create a posed finger and make it look more like a claw. So I'm just tapering this down, and I'm at 0.1 for this. I'm going to switch over here, go to 4 on the keyboard. There's the curve inside. I'm going to come over here and right mouse click over that curve and grab the control vertex, and this is what's going to allow me to bend it. Okay, so I'm pushing this one down, grabbing the center one here and pulling that up. Same thing here. And I'm going to come back to 5 on the keyboard. And it's flexed a little bit, so I'm going to straighten these out. Do that. And I'm going to rotate them a little more. They're getting a little pinched right here. Starting to lose some volume. Alright, and I don't mind a little bit of the twisting. Straighten this up just a little bit. Alright, so I'll start off with that. And I'm going to come over here to the index finger claw and do that. Pull it out. Taper it down to 0.1. Switch over to wireframe and hover over the curve, grab the control vertex, and so I'm going to angle it down, pull it up, and come back to here, go to 5 on the keyboard, double click on these and rotate them. This one here needs to be rotated forward. And because we've got this angle going on here, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm going to double click on this and see if I can switch over my axis orientation. There we go. So component will work a little better for us. All right. Straightening that out. Okay, so I've got a little curvature happening right there that I want to take out. Okay, and I feel like this claw could be a little longer. So grab the control vertex on this one and try pulling it forward. Alright, that looks better. Okay, coming over here to the pinky finger, same thing. And we'll taper that down to 0.1 again. I'm going to pull it out like this. So this one will be a little shorter, or like that. Grabbing the control point. And I think in this case I'm going to pull this one up. Alright, and then I'm just going to make some adjustments on those edges. Alright. Coming over here to the thumb now. I'm going to grab these faces. And extrude those. Taper them down to 0.1. Pull these out. And actually I'm going to undo that and go back and shape this first. So I'm going to pull this out, angle it, and then do my extrude. Come over here, go to 4, grab the control vertex and shape this. Okay, back to 5 here, and pull that back a little. Alright, so just looking at the size of that, I feel like it's a little thick. Okay, and then I'm going to start shaping this. Okay, so I want these to be a little bit blockier. If I hit 3 on my keyboard and I take a look at it right now, it's a little too edgy. I do want to pull some of these points out here. So I'm going to come in here and grab a few of these and start pulling these out. And I'm going to go back to 1 on the keyboard. Alright, and I've actually got all of these over here to pull out. Start rounding out the side of the hand. Grab that one also. Same thing over here. Alright, so that creates some softness, and I'm going to do a little bit of shaping on the bottom of the fingers. Okay, so you can see how that started rounding those out. Alright, and I'm going to drop in another edge loop right here, and this is going to allow me to pull these points down. Create some more thickness right here. Okay, and I want to get some knuckles formed over here, so I'm going to grab 4 faces here, and I'm going to extrude these without the curve on. So I'm going to close that, open up the option box for extrude, and go back to select. I can actually come under here and say reset settings, and then extrude, and I'm going to pull these up and scale them in. Alright, and the next knuckle here in the center, extrude, pull that up a little higher, scale it in. Okay, and last one over here, extrude, pull that up, scale it like that. Alright, so that gives it a look like that. Alright, so we've got these edges that are being shared between the fingers. I want to go back here and just correct that and scale these in a little. Alright. And for these knuckles here, I'm going to drop these in, and that's actually getting quite tight right there. I'm going to go to edge slide and move these forward. And they did pull a little bit right there. I'm going to take them one by one. Here we go. Turn this off. Angle that up a little bit. Same thing here. And then drop in my other edge loop here. And I'm going to delete this one over here. Okay. And I'm going to add another set of edge loops around this one. Okay, and I feel like these are a little close to this part of the finger, so I'm gonna grab this edge, turn on edge slide, and pull it forward. Turn this off and pull it up just a little bit, and then go in and put in the supporting edge loops. Okay, so I don't have supporting edge loops around this part of the finger on the pinky, and if I'm going to do that, I probably need to make this finger overall a little bit longer. So go to wireframe. I've still got my active curve in here, and go ahead and move that out and stretch out the finger. Alright, so with that done, go back to object, and now I can go in and insert these edge loops. Okay. Alright, so the fingers are a little flat across the top. I actually don't mind that too much. If I hit 3 on my keyboard, and let me get out of this mode here, Q, I can kind of see what it's doing. So it's a lot more angular than this other hand we have back here. The one thing I do want to do is create some knuckles on here, so I'm going to shape these a little bit. I'm going to go back to 1 and push these back. I'm also going to pull these in tighter. Okay, and these I'm going to push down just a little bit, so that's creating the crease on the bottom side of the knuckle. And grabbing these faces here, going to extrude them, scale them in. Okay, so the higher I pull them up, the more knobby they're going to be. Put them right about there. And I'll come over here and do the same thing. So vertex, slide it back. Alright. And these I'm pulling forward. Alright, then grabbing the faces on the top here for the knuckle and extruding that. Alright. And last one over here. Right. And the front part of this little fold, I'm going to pull that down, push it back. Alright. And then the extrude on the knuckles. The last knuckle here. Pull that up, scale it in. Alright, so before I come in here and shape the thumb and add the knuckles, want to get some of the volume that's missing on the top part of the hand. So I'm going to grab some points. And I'm not using the sculpting tool. I feel like this is a little bit more precise than what I'm trying to do here. So I want a little bit more control over it. And pulling that up, and I think these are getting a little too much depth to them. So I'm going to grab these points here. Pull those up as well, and actually I'm going to go ahead and push these down and grab these across here. Here. And let's try pulling those up. There we go. That looks better. And just the center now, pulling that up. Deselecting those points, pulling these up a little bit more here. And I needed to grab these back here as well. Okay, so that gets the thickness on the top of the palm. And I'm going to pull these up just a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to push them down like this. Same thing here. It just creates a little bit of softness, just so they're not quite so hard edge. Okay, and just looking at this over here, that needs to come up a little. And these I'm going to pull down here. Okay, so that kind of flows into the fingers from the knuckles. All right. So let's move on to the thumb. So with the thumb, I'm only going to have one knuckle. Pull it forward and up. Make it just a little bit more obvious. And straightening up these edges. That looks good. Dropping in edge loops. Here and here. Cue to end that. Pulling that forward. All right. So I feel like these could have just a little bit more of a crease in them. So I'm going to do that and then shape the knuckle here on top. Alright, pull that up and grab the faces, extrude that. And I'm going to have to do that. Okay, and I've got a strange little extrude that happened here, so just going to go to wireframe. All right. Let's go ahead and extrude that again. I'm going to center it, pull it up, and scale it in. All right. All right, a little bit more shaping here on the thumb. Pulling those up. Probably leave that down there, and I feel like these points need to come up a little bit more and out. Same thing here. And I'm just preparing here for my character's wrist because I know he's got a large wrist. So I'm opening that up, and again along here. Okay. And thickening this area up right here. And the palm of the hand. I feel like these can come out a little bit more too. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and get this ready, and I'm going to use this one to attach to the character. This is a little bit more like the drawing I have here, so back to object mode. I'm not going to attach this one, I'm going to actually duplicate this one. After I save the scene file, I'm going to duplicate it, call this hand, and this is the character's left hand. And I'm going to slide it over here. I'm going to select both of these and just hide them, and hide these as well. Okay, and start positioning this and shaping it. It's a little large. And I do want to have these angled just a little bit. Okay, and be in a little like that. That looks good. And I've got 8 edges here from the initial 4 faces that we extruded our arm from, and I need to find 8 edges over here that I can attach it to. So if I come over here and I just select 4 faces like this, it leaves me with quite a bit of an edge right here that doesn't necessarily look so good on the character's wrist, even if I slide these over here. I could get away with that. I feel like another way is to actually collapse this geometry down. So just taking a look at that. I could slide that over here. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm actually going to keep this on here, and I'll show you how to collapse geometry on the other hand that I made. But I think for this character, I feel like it's low enough geometry that I can go ahead and just keep it. So this is going to become the corner or the turn on the side of the palm, and same thing here. This is connecting up with our thumb here too, and this is now going to be the edge that connects with the wrist. And I'm going to pull this over. That too. and do that. And I ended up with a little extrude here on the bottom. Let me actually fix that first. Delete that and double click on the edges, shift right mouse click, fill hole. And I've got to reconnect that right there. So multi-cut tool here to there, hit return and Q to get out of that. Okay. Alright, so just grabbing some of these vertices, pulling them forward a bit. And I'm just thickening up the wrist again, or the connection to the wrist. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this attached, and I can come back and make some corrections to these points here after I've got it connected. There's usually a little bit of cleanup. Okay, so I'm going to select the four faces here and knock those out and open it up. And I selected an extra face here. There we go. Alright, and then just positioning it one more time. I'm going to slide it a little closer. And usually what I do is I use the Target Weld tool. Because I have this large gap and I'm trying to angle this, what I'm going to do is actually bridge that. So let's combine the mesh. Coming under mesh, combine. And then selecting the edge on the wrist and here, and it's not going to give me the best connection here. Let me let's just check that out. Yeah, so it's a little rough. Not super happy with that. Got a vertex, and let me just do a little bit more shaping here, and it's because I'm trying to get this angle with the hand. It's not totally in line with the wrist. If I were to angle this more towards the wrist and get it nice and close there, I could do the target weld and it would look nice. But because I'm trying to get a different angle, I'm going to have a little bit more work to do. So this is actually twisting around here. Pull these out. Here. So I'm trying to line these all up as much as possible so I don't have a ton of cleanup. And what I mean by cleanup is twisting. So bridging will usually cause a little bit of twisting to happen, and I just pull that way out there. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of go for it here and see what I get. Alright, let's go to edge, double click, shift double click, and bridge. Alright, so I'm going to add one division in there. will help. And go to vertex and do a little bit of shaping, but that's pretty much getting us where we need to go for connecting these two. And some of these edges I think can come up. I'm going to use edge slide to shape right now just to space them out properly. Alright, and then turn that off and come back in here and shape. Okay, so I've got some shaping to do right here to make a smoother transition into the arm. And I want to make sure everything's straight. Alright, so that is coming together. I could spend a little bit more time just doing some cleanup on here, but I think you get the idea that I'm just sort of going through here and straightening things up and just looking at the curves and making sure everything looks nice, evenly spaced, and all that. And I think I want to push that back a little bit, flatten that out. Same thing here. I feel like that's kind of popping out there. Push that back a little bit. Alright. So, real quick, I'm just going to save my scene and come over to the hand that I turned off, which I think is this one. This one here. There we go. So to reduce edges, if you need to do that, let me hit F to frame around that. There we go. I'll go back to 1 on my keyboard. So typically what you do on a hand, if you are attaching it to a wrist and it doesn't have the right number of edges on it, you start collapsing the resolution down. So this is done by using the Target Weld tool, and I'm just going to come across here, top of the hand, and connect these to about here. And then I'm going to come across the other direction and pull this edge in. To here. Alright, and I can come back to edge, hit Q on the keyboard, and delete this edge in here. Okay, so that makes a quad. And under here, do the same thing. And what this gives us is the 4 faces here that we can knock out to attach to our wrist. And these edges here, here and here, become the transition point that round out the corners of the palms. So, and then you would probably come back in here and pull some of this over a little bit, and also begin to shape this so it's got some roundness to it. Okay, and same thing here, so just rounding that out, that up, and that would make a pretty good transition to the wrist. Alright. And ideally I would probably have another edge coming across here, and I would not have run this point clear up into the knuckle area because there is some deformation happening right there. So I might do something like come back over to this point here and reconnect that, and just move this area down one row here and delete these out, delete this one, and I would have it transitioning right here. So there's less deformation happening across this part of the palm than there is right here. So this is a little bit better place to hide this transition point right here. Okay, so that's collapsing down resolution. I'm going to go ahead and select that and hide it again, and cutting the character in half. Okay, so just going to faces, grabbing half, deleting that, and looks like I might need to straighten this out a little bit. So usually when I get this much in here, quite often I will double click, but I missed one right here. That's what's going on. So here and here, and looks like I've got edges coming right in to the center here that I don't want, so I want to separate that, otherwise they're going to merge. And I'm going to just double click around here, and then in the center here I'm going to just shift and deselect these points. Okay, so I know I've got everything, and now I'm going to go to Scale, drag X to the center, go to the Move tool, hold down the X key, and snap that onto the grid. Go back to Object, Shift right mouse click, and mirror that over. And I'm going to look at the merge threshold. It should not be that high. I'm going to go with 0.01. And there should not be any gaps. Everything lined up okay. Alright. So back to object mode. And we've got a character with hands now. And we're going to come back in the next lesson and model the feet.